And what more do you think the continent can do, and how can we work towards that goal right from this moment in which we're trying to leverage our natural resources to develop the continent, but also be on the right side of history when it comes to climate resilience and climate adaptation?
Right. You know, I often argue that the continent actually is the master map of climate resiliency, of nature positive growth, because when you think about it, we often argue that the continent has only contributed 3 to 4% of emissions. But if you take North Africa out of it and you take South Africa, the remaining member states only contributed 1% of the emissions. So with some accelerated growth, if we look at Botswana at some point running with an accelerated growth of 9%, going into the double digits, highly coal-powered, but still very nature-positive in the way that we have maintained and restored nature resources. So I don't think it's more of a question of how do we grow being climate positive, is how do we ensure that development is a climate imperative and vice versa, and ensure that as we are pushing for more investments and with the exponential growth of climate finance, we are positioning the continent well to invest in projects that I know will be spoken to later, that are working on what we'd say transition energy, but for me, it's not transition because you have millions of people without energy. So working on providing energy access to those that never had some, to build more resilient energy infrastructure that can withstand the climate shocks that we know we will have, and then to ensure that we are using that energy as a trade facilitator and a facilitator for industrialization. And what we've been looking at in our team is thinking a little bit more comprehensively about what just energy access and transition means, and just thinking about rerouting and rewiring initiatives around the just energy transition to make sure that they are more comprehensive, they go beyond energy towards economy-wide transformations, and we're looking at making them a lot more inclusive, so going beyond the selected set of countries or selected set of communities, and ensuring that the framework, a general framework, is more applicable towards particularly rural and vulnerable developing economies, and also looking at that they are particularly fit for purpose and that they are truly aligning with the decarbonization efforts. And fit for purpose here, we mean that they are meeting development needs. Because what is the point of saying you're going to transition, you're moving from coal or you're moving from gas, leaving communities without energy yes, and worse off than where they started. And then lastly, just to make sure that all of these plans are comprehensive, they're inclusive, fit for purpose, but most importantly are financed.
Interesting points you made. Now, Afreximbank supporting is a friend to everyone. It's got a handshake with almost everyone in the room, whether right, you're on the fossil fuel side or you're on the climate-friendly renewable energy side. So we need this pipeline of products. We need pipeline of projects that we need to fund and all that. Are you seeing this pipeline of climate-friendly projects on the African continent? Are we beginning to scratch the surface, in your opinion?
You know, I think that there are a lot of good projects out there, particularly in the mitigation space and energy. What we're seeing, though, is lacking is capacity building, preparation, the project preparation for financing. That is the gap that we're seeing, and we're not seeing enough financing going to that project preparation stage. And as a result, a lot of the projects get stalled at initiation, and if we just unlock that part, I believe that we would have a lot more community-led, SME-led, but also African-led projects in the continent.
So what more do you think we need to do? How do we make these projects more bankable and delivered right on time and on schedule without us running projects that are on 10, 15 years and folks are left behind? There's no industrialization, we're lagging in trade and every other thing we need to do.
Yeah, it starts at the top, the nationally determined contributions that countries are using to source investment at a more macro level. They are not well tailored and do not have investment strategies that can really attract the right financing. And then secondly, what we have seen with our compendium of projects is that the term sheets are not done right. There is no clarification of how long the project is intended to run, what kind of financing is required, and then there has been some sort of hesitancy towards equity financing and more leaning towards debt, which is really expensive. And so we have been working with several project originators to align them a little bit with cheaper capital and make sure that the term sheets that they're working with are clearer to investors, both in the continent and foreign, institutional investors, as well as private financiers.
My audience wants to know where this money is. Tell them where the money is. Tell them where to find it.
Well, find me. No, I'm kidding. No. Don't find me. I do not have the money. We are looking for the money. We started with this compendium of projects last year following the Africa Climate Forum. And since then, we've managed to finance about 7 projects through MDBs, but also through through MDBs, but also through private financing. We have seen, and this is the part that I really want to highlight, some growing interest from institutional financiers to participate in commercial and private projects vis-a-vis the national big projects, which we found as a very interesting trend. It shows that there's a growing confidence in the private sector and IPP space in the continent, and therefore we want to encourage others like the ones that you will be interviewing later to position themselves for that financing.
What about PPP? Where does that come in here?
It's one of the largest. Yes, it's one of the windows, certainly. One of the challenges that we've seen, and we keep pushing back here, is for triple P, some of them are challenged by the rating of the national governments, and there's this really heavy perception of risk against several African countries, my own included, which has a very clean credit rating. And we have been challenging this positioning of perception of risk and pushing for a little bit more space in de-risking tools and facilities, not only through MDBs, but also through DFIs that are government-backed. It is important that as we wait for those $100 billion pledges that were made for climate finance, that we have these government-backed DFIs really position themselves to be able to lose 10 cents on the dollar to promote development and energy access in EMDE markets.
Interesting. My final point is about decarbonization. Is that an African-centric approach to these particular destination we're heading?
Yes. I think African growth has been decarbonized growth for the most part. Others would argue that it's because there hasn't been any development, so there hasn't been any emissions, and we stand a chance of being the largest emitters once we catch fire.
So we could just move on?
No. What is critical is to ensure that the nationally determined contribution projects as listed at the macro level are representative of both adaptation and mitigation. And the way we think about energy should stop being just mitigation focused, but should be aimed at building resilience of communities and building resilience of the infrastructure. Because if the infrastructure itself, if we invest in infrastructure now, and in itself it's not resilient, there will only be short-term gains. And what we're looking for is long-term sustainable gains. And I think it's also really important that we point out, and I'll keep coming back to finance, because it's not only an unlocker of development, but we believe it's the key element of us engaging in a decarbonization and an energy transition conversation, that at the moment, we are seeing 9 times more financing going to dirtier resources than to green resources.
Yes.
So if you want to see a transition, then we need to put money behind the ambitions that we're speaking to,
yes.
right?
Correct.
We need to have more solar farms, but we also really need to, in the position of the continent, think about the role that natural gas plays in providing clean cooking solutions and enabling households to be part of the growing economy and the role of natural gas in
And you think natural
industrialization.
gas is not just a transition energy, but it has to be part of the mix,
Yes,
part of the portfolio?
it has to be. It has to be. And I know this is a very highly contested issue, but I think it is the reality for the continent if we are to see the development that we want, because there is no adaptation and resilience if people do not have energy, if they do not have industrialized sectors that provide employment and sustainable livelihoods.